She's letting me smash raw. And that's all under the pretenses of, well, I'm a sexually liberated woman. I can do exactly what I want, just like how men can do. But the issue comes in is that when it comes to that, when it comes to casual sex, even though sex isn't casual, the woman has more of the burden. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Find Your Formula Reacts. And today we got a banger. We're going to be going over one conservative versus 20 feminists. And this was posted from a Jubilee. I really like the Jubilee style of videos. It really allows you to kind of see the contrasting thoughts. And I think this like little snapshot of what they're depicting in this video here, if you extrapolate it out, it kind of goes to show you the landscape of the dating market for the average young man today. So without any further ado, let's get into the video.
My first claim is that the sexual revolution has devalued women and made them infinitely less happy.
Mm.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
Hi, I'm
What's your name?
Samaya.
Samaya, nice to meet you. I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you too. So my question for you is, statistics show that 60% of women who are murdered by their intimate partners, murdered by someone that they are in close relations with. That's according to the UN from 2023.
Yeah.
So how is it that, women are so valued, quote unquote, in the home, and yet that's the place where they're at the most danger?
Okay, so I'm not sure what that has to do with the sexual revolution.
Right, the sexual revolution.
The first claim.
The sexual revolution gave.
I'm happy to answer it. I'm just saying that, if you broaden that statistic, you are more likely in general just to be murdered by somebody you know.
That's true. But I think, here's what I think what ends up happening when we talk about value. It doesn't devalue you as a human being or as a person. You can go out and sleep with 100 dudes and then like still, I don't know, invent some great discovery that makes the world a better place. So it doesn't make you a worse human being that has a capability of contributing to the world. But you do lose value in the dating sense to a man, because a man, typically any self-respecting man, isn't going to want to date or marry a woman who slept with everybody. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about value, it's not because you said the sexual revolution has devalued women, not as human beings. Okay, they're still people, they're still human beings, but when it comes to dating and relationships, then yeah, they have devalued. And then you could also say it was like, well, it does kind of devalue as a human being, because relationships are everything. Like without good relationships, life is significantly worse, and you see that with a lot of lonely men and the lonely male epidemic, because a lot of these men can't get women to like them, or they're not sure about how to do that, and they don't have male friendships, which is a whole nother thing. But you could make that argument. You could make that argument. But for this, what we're talking about here is it doesn't devalue you as a human being. It just devalues you as a potential partner that the everyday man or even the exceptional man is going to want to be with because of your sexual past. So that needs to be talked about more in depth when we have these types of conversations. Because she's talking about, oh, like value as a person. Like, no, like in the dating sense, it needs to be kind of quantified and talked about a little bit more.
Oh, so of course.
But men are much less likely to be murdered by, their
That's not
partners.
true.
Yes,
it is. Yeah, I'm sure.
Because yeah, by their partners,
like
sure.
To be murdered by women. Full stop. Yeah, exactly. So that statistic makes sense.
But men,
I'm still not sure how this correlates to whether or not
the sexual revolution increased women's ability to leave the house, women's ability to control their own reproductive capabilities, women's ability to, control their own capacity within the workforce in regards to their own sexual capacity. So it is the very fact that the sexual revolution happened that made our access to the workplace much more, or just the public sphere in general, much more easy. So without the sexual revolution, women would be much more confined to the place where they're at the most danger. Isn't that true?
So you think that, just so I'm trying to understand your argument here, you think that if we didn't have the sexual revolution, less women or more women would be murdered? Are you saying that women are
more women would be murdered for sure?
Okay. I disagree with that. I still don't think it has anything to do with the claim that women are infinitely less happy because of the sexual revolution, which has devalued women.
I think you'd probably be less happy if you're being murdered.
Oh.
Anyone disagree?
Okay, yeah, I don't. Okay. Okay. There is definitely a correlation between personal relationships and domestic violence. And just to be clear, if
Right.
we're talking about just like a monogamous relationships, the most violent relationships that are on the books are between
Yeah,
lesbian
women on women.
partners. Yes,
So
when
so
people
let's read this here. It says a survey from 2013 shows that 61% of bisexual women and 44% of lesbian women reported intimate partner DV or domestic violence, compared to only 35% of straight women, according to Stanford Families Free Violence. So I know sometimes with surveys, they're not the most accurate depiction of data, but if we just take this as somewhat true, it really goes to show that the women that exclusively only deal with men have, or at least report the least amount of DV. What this survey doesn't talk about is the men that go through domestic violence, but they don't even report it because men are less likely to report because in these situations and instances, men can't really be victims. Because if you're a man who gets beat up by a woman, people laugh at you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you let this girl beat you up. Like people just kind of look at you as less than a man or somebody whose masculinity is now put into question. So I'd kind of like to see if they talk about that aspect of it or that side of it as well. But when it comes to violence, men are much more exposed to violence than women are, hands down, in pretty much every realm. When it comes to like violent crimes, the murderer, the people who are affected more by violent crimes, it's 100% men as opposed to women. So let's see if they talk about that.
are intimate,
That's not a true
that is actually
statistic.
true.
No, that's
And just to be clear,
right.
if we're talking about just like a monogamous relationships, the most violent relationships that are on the books are between lesbian partners. Yes, when people are intimate,
that's not a true
that is actually true.
No, the statistic you're talking about is people who have faced domestic violence. Lesbians, yes, are more likely to have faced domestic violence, but that's because they typically came from relationships with men in which they were mistreated.
Lesbian relationships are the most violent relationships.
Wait, that doesn't even make sense. How would lesbian relationships face more domestic violence because they came out of relationships with men? But then that wouldn't make them lesbian. If they are lesbian, then that means that they came from a relationship with a woman. I want to make sure I heard her correctly.
No, the statistic you're talking about is people who have faced domestic violence. Lesbians, yes, are more likely to have faced domestic violence, but that's because they typically came from relationships with men in which they were mistreated.
Lesbian relationships are
lesbians don't date men. That's the whole point of being a lesbian. So how can you it's very interesting to me, a lot of feminist ability to blame everything on men. Lesbians don't even deal with men in the romantic sense, but somehow the fact that lesbians face more domestic violence is still somehow a man's fault. I don't understand that at all. That's actually crazy that she said that. It's because they were in relationships with men and then they left. And now they just like are all lesbians just women who dated men at some point in time and then stopped and then now they only date women, or are there some women who just straight like they're just lesbians? Like that doesn't make sense. That was actually a crazy take.
With violent relationships that we have on the books.
But we can move on.
They can fact check that claim. The point being is that it's not exactly a stunning statistic to say that when people are in relationships, period, whether those relationships are homosexual, whether they're
but
married,
you're saying that the sexual revolution.
Let me finish. I've let you try to explain how this is correlated to happiness, and I don't think it does. I actually think you're having a different debate right now. But yes, absolutely. It makes perfect sense that you are more likely in general when you are in a relationship because people are driven by anger by people that they know,
right?
Whether or not we're talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend, a husband and a wife, a husband and a husband, or a wife and a wife. Yes, of course, the instances of domestic violence are going to take place when you're inside of a home. But the sexual revolution, encouraging women to give up their goods for free, which is what I'm speaking about, and encouraging men not to
commit
marry
to them,
these women or to have long-term relationships, what I am saying is a direct contributor to their unhappiness because women are giving up their goods for free and women are now entering the workplace, and that does not actually make them happy.
Okay, pause. Sorry, you've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you? I'm Candace.
Nice to meet you.
So really quick, before they get into it, I want to talk about that because she's 100% right. What the sexual revolution essentially did was it made it easier for the top 10, 5, 1% the top guys, the guys who are at the top, it made it extremely easy for them to trick and lie to women to get what they want from them and never be able to commit. Because what ends up happening with that, and Homath has a really good video on this, what ends up happening is that if you're a guy, right, and you see a woman, you already kind of know what category you're going to put her in, either the keeper, the sleeper, or the sweeper, right? And again, I'll link Homath's video in the description below so you can see what I'm talking about, or what he's talking about, rather. The keeper zone is pretty much a woman that you're willing to commit to, a woman that you're willing to marry, a woman that you want to have a family with, and all of these things, right? The sweeper or the sleeper zone is the type of woman that you're just hooking up with. You're not really too keen on committing to her because she said one or two things, or you know about her past, and or whatever the case may be. You might even go out with her, like you might go to the movies with her. You might, you know what I'm saying, introduce her to some of your friends because she's hot, but you're not gonna actually commit to her. You know that you're not gonna commit to her. The sweeper chick is like the dungeon troll you just happen to sleep with at 4 a.m. on a horrible night out with the guys. You're like, yeah, let me call up Anastasia, let me see what she's doing. That's how that works, and that's kind of how that correlates. So for the sexual revolution, I can't tell you how many times there's been times where I'll go and I'll like match with a girl on Tinder or whatever, and I'll hook up with her with no commitment, no nothing. She doesn't know anything about me. She's letting me smash raw, and that's all under the pretenses of, well, I'm a sexually liberated woman. I can do exactly what I want, just like how men can do. But the issue comes in is that when it comes to casual sex, even though sex isn't casual, the woman has more of the burden. The man has more of the burden to get the sex, but then everything after that is the woman's burden to keep the man to actually want to be around her. And a lot of the times that just doesn't happen because why does he have to? He's already slept with you. And that sounds kind of messed up to say, but that's what Candace is saying. They're giving up their goods for free under the pretenses of, well, this is my body, my choice. That's fine. You could do that, but you can't get mad if that guy doesn't want to commit to you because he's not going to. Why would he? He has no reason to commit to you. And then he also thinks, well, damn, she's giving it up this easy for me. Who else has she given it up this easy for? I can't commit to a woman like that. So let's keep going.
Nice to meet you. Julian, my pronouns are they, them. It's very interesting to think of it when we just think about the gender binary. It's, how do we place value on human beings in general? And so when we think about, placing value, that comes from a place of power, right? So I think let's select like the Victorian era. You have this dominant group of people coming from white supremacy, deciding who gets to have a proper status in the world. And so that is already like taking human beings and devaluing them. And so what the sexual revolution did was to help people seek out empowerment, which increased value no matter the gender. So when it comes to sexual revolution, let's look at one contribution is sex education. I'm actually an educator. I teach sociology and LGBTQ studies. And I have absolutely seen the positive outcome with the sexual revolution and sex education and seen people empower themselves. And with that comes safety when it comes to decreasing STIs, abuse, sexual assault. Again, people get to empower themselves of all genders. And I know earlier you mentioned about violence amongst lesbians and sapphic community, which I do identify within. All genders can be subjected to violence.
That was the point I was making. So I wasn't sure of how her claim was relating to what we were talking about, whether or not it makes people happy or unhappy. Relationships are obviously a ground where there can be violence.
I guess I could just wrap it up by saying, like, if we all have access to like sex education through the incredible work of feminists through the sexual revolution, we are able to gain access to information and gain skills to create an equitable society, egalitarian within our relationships, whether it be platonic or romantic. I'm so grateful for those feminists who have fought for us so we can gain those spaces and create a healthier society.
Okay. All right. That all sounds great. She said a lot. She hit every buzzword, every category of struggle, all of that. That sounds great. And I do agree. Yes, sexual education is good. But it's not like people are getting sexual education and then basing who they give their body to off of things that actually matter. They're not like, okay, I know that having a long-term partner will be better for me, this, that, and the third. So I'm going to try to get a guy to commit to me. That's not, no one cares. That's not what women like. That's not what women do. Again, not all women. But again, in Western society, yo, there's dudes that would die for their wife or their girlfriend, and she's going to Miami to get dug out in a 5-star hotel by Buster McThunderstick. Like, that's what happens. That's what actually happens, yo. So we can't sit up here and act like, okay, we give people education and they just start making better decisions. They don't. They don't. People are going to be people at the end of the day. I remember when I was downrange, yo, man, listen, the amount of women I've seen with my job take their rings off, start dressing a little bit more, let's say, promiscuous. Right? I've seen it all in real time. Very educated women went to the college, undergrad, graduates degrees. Some even have doctorates. Cheating. They out here cheating. So you're like, yeah, the sex education is good. And also, she said how it lowers STIs. Please explain to me how sleeping with more people lowers your chances of getting an STI. Not to mention the baby deletion. Not to mention that it's something like $1 million plus a year. So how can we have all this education, but yet women are still deleting the fetuses and still and then when they don't, they're being single mothers because they're picking bad dudes. And look, I've been a bad dude. I've been that guy who says all the right things, knows exactly what to say. I understand. I understand the game very well. But we can't sit up here and act like the education is making everything better, because women are still making bad choices. They're still making bad choices in men. They're still making bad choices in who they allow to get them pregnant. So what are you talking about? I want to hear Candace's take on this.
Are you a believer in the government?
Romantic. I'm so grateful for those feminists who have fought for us so we can gain those spaces and create a healthier society.
Okay. Are you a believer in the government doing everything that it can to make people happy?
So when it comes, as someone that teaches in the public sector, I understand the concern when it comes to what is a teacher, what kind of information they're providing to the students. I do believe that we, as a teacher, I should be able to give that sort of information. Again, I teach college students. One of my claims that we should mandate sex education amongst college students. So yes, I do want the state, I would like the government to give us those resources so we can implement that curriculum.
Okay. You consider yourself a feminist, I'm assuming?
Queer feminist. There's variations, right?
What is a queer feminist as opposed to a feminist, just so I understand?
Well, so I heavily believe in queer theory. So, the gender binary that we understand, it comes from colonization. So someone who is mixed race, family from Mexico, we have the Mushes in Mexico, which is an indigenous tribe. They believed in gender fluidity. And then you have European colonizers coming who dismantle that. And now everything that we understand when it comes to gender is a Western lens. So from a queer...
So you don't even think women exist, I'm guessing.
I think everyone should be empowered to figure out their identity and explore the language that best describes themselves. So freedom, America, right?
Bro, it's hard for me to listen to her because she's all over the place. And people who think like this, who think that everything is subjective, they have to say so much of nothing, because that's their whole worldview is fragmented through so many different lenses and so many different things that nothing can be objective. Because the minute something is objective, that means that it has structure. And with structure comes walls. Like, here's the relationship between order and chaos, all right? Chaos is just that. There's no order. It's everywhere all at once all the time. There's no way to lock it down. So when you ask people, hey, what is a woman? A woman is anybody who identifies as a woman. But what are they identifying as? As a woman. But what is that? It's a circular thing because there's no order to it. There's no parameters. You can't cut it off and say, well, this falls outside of the order, therefore it needs to be ostracized and dealt with as a chaotic entity that is not helpful to society. But they can't do that. And that's so dangerous, because if these people get into power and then they start running a country with no structure, no purpose, no way to lock anything down, you run a society based purely on feelings. Purely on feelings. And that is the most dangerous society to run. Because, how do we know? I don't know. This person may have felt like just offing this person today, and it was justified because the solar moon of the particles aligned with the retrograde, and Pisces, like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm listening to her answer questions and I'm getting frustrated because her entire worldview is depicted on how she answers questions. Candace will ask a very direct question. Do you believe in government? Well, as an educator, I believe that we should mandate because the but so yeah, I actually do. How hard was that? How hard was that to say? Yes, I actually do. But when you ask someone a direct question and they are unable to answer directly, it goes to show you what their worldview actually is. She hasn't answered a single direct question, and I think that people are starting to realize that too, because even the flag like voter router thing is starting to raise up. Like, answer the question, and then we can get into all of the semantics. It's hard for me to listen to this in good faith because you're all over the place and you're not saying anything of substance. How we look at beauty is a Western colonization. How we look at beauty, you've like the people that you support have changed what beauty is. You have an overweight chick winning Miss Alabama. What? You had Bruce Jenner win Woman of the Year, her first year being a woman, stunning and brave. That can't be what beauty is. We can't build a society and say, well, everything is beautiful, except for if you're a straight white man, then you automatically are discarded. You can't be tolerant and intolerant at the same time. People like this, man, it irks my nerves. It irks my nerves.
America, freedom. And I want to believe in that when it comes to identity. Right. Everyone should have the freedom to decide how they want to identify, as long as they're not causing harm. But that's where we get into the debate. What is harm?
What is harm is very, very objective. It's not subjective at all. You can look and see, is this society going up or is this society going down? And anytime you have freedom without order, freedom minus order equals chaos. That's all chaos is doing whatever you so please whenever you feel like it. That's hedonism 101. It's just a different flavor of chaos. So you can't have freedom without order and expect the society to run in a direction that's going to be beneficial for people, for the members of that society and families. It just doesn't happen. Anytime you give people free reign to do things, they're going to do evil things. It's embedded in the flesh. It's part of human nature. So you can't sit up here and say, I want everyone to have the freedom for that identity. Unless they identify, here's the thing they're not telling you, unless they identify with something I don't agree with, then that person should be ostracized. They shouldn't have the freedom to do that. Because people that believe this, they believe in freedom of speech, let's say, but not freedom of thought. You have to look a certain way, you have to talk a certain way in order for me to agree that you should have the freedoms. Because, I mean, look at what they did with Andrew Tate. They shut his whole everything down. Tom Likas, Joe Rogan, even to some extent, they believe in freedom of speech until you say some things that I don't like, then you shouldn't have a platform anymore. That's the whole purpose of cancel culture. That's all cancel culture was you can say what you want until I don't like it. And if that's the case, then you're a tyrant now. Because now you're just cutting out the tongues of people who you don't agree with. That doesn't make you right. It doesn't mean that the person that had something to say was wrong. It just means you feared what he had to say. That doesn't make you right. That's the opposite of freedom. It's the opposite of freedom. That's tyranny. You're using freedom to mask your tyranny. The people that, not her specifically, but the people that she supports when they get into power, that's all they do. That's all they do.
So just, again, to be clear, to go back to this claim, we are debating female happiness. Mm-hmm. You are saying you do not identify as a female.
I identify with all gender expressions. So from masculinity to
female. Move on.
I'm just saying.
Move on. Move on.
Are you just saying that as a part of queer theory, you're debating whether or not women are happier after the sexual revolution? I'm just trying to understand because it seems like you're debating queer theory as opposed to female.
I believe all genders benefit from the sexual revolution.
You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
That is 1,000% not true.
Hello.
I'm Zena.
Zena, very much like your name.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Can we start with the beginning? Do you identify as a female?
I identify as a woman, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I do want to get back to your premise. You're saying that women have been devalued, right, by the sexual revolution. This kind of presumes two things. One, that there has been a loss of worth, right, for women. So you're saying that women have, as human beings, lost worth. Women who prior to the sexual revolution were worth more than women today.
Well, they haven't lost worth. Again, they haven't. That's what I'm saying. These things need to be quantified. They haven't lost worth as human beings. They've lost worth as wives and as valuable partners for the men that they want. That's what they've lost worth in. If you're a woman and you're going out having a hoe phase, that's not going to help you be a wife later on in life. It's just like if a guy, I'm going to use an extreme example here, right? That's like right now, a straight man. He gets his gag reflex removed so he can grease up poles better. And he goes out into the world thinking like, well, this is part of the sexual revolution. Again, guys don't do this. This is a crazy example, I know. But he uses that to say like, well, this is the sexual revolution. How has it devalued me? Brother, you're going to go up to a woman and be like, hey, I can probably go down on me better than you can. No woman is going to be like, great, that adds value to you. It's the exact same thing when women are like, yeah, I went out to Cancun and got banged out by 10 dudes when I was 21, but that was forever ago, and I had 14 abortions, and I had 6 STDs, but now I'm ready to settle down and be a wife. That dude is going to be like, ugh, I'm good. Again, you go from keeper to sleeper. At best, sleeper. At best, I'm going to smash a couple times because I'm trying to see what them 10 dudes got. Was it worth it? And then after that, I'm gone. I'm going to make up an excuse. I don't know where I'm going to be. Work's been super busy. Got a new phone. I'm going to make up whatever excuse to push you away so you know that I'm not trying to commit to you. That's where you lose value, not as a human being. And I hope Candace talks about that. You're not losing value as a human being. You're losing value as a permanent partner for the guy that you want. That's where you're losing your value.
Yes, women have devalued.
Right, for women. So you're saying that women have, as human beings, lost worth. Women who, prior to their sexual revolution, were worth more than women today.
I would say that, yes, women have devalued themselves by becoming overtly sexual. That's my claim. So, I mean, also according to and let's not remove this from the other part of the claim, which that it has made women infinitely less happy.
Right. So are you saying, but you're saying that according to you, women have been devalued?
Not according to me. According to the time in which people are getting married, how difficult it is for people to find a partner that's willing to commit to them. And I think that's in large part due to the fact that women are offering sex for free because it was a major component of the sexual revolution was this idea.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality.
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going
to in a relationship,
partners, you're going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being.
Not as a human being, okay. Just, in terms of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship.
Thank you.
Women are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when the market is throwing them.
A man's response to your actions is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
To some degree, yes.
I would argue that what makes women actually happy is family. So if you're interrupting, just to connect the dots for you, when women are having sex with multiple partners, it devalues them for men, right?
For men. So,
yes. So
men define a woman's worth.
Well, I think both of them kind of define one another's worth because I think the ultimate goal for people to be happy is actually family.
Okay, so you're saying
not work.
In all cases.
Yes. So in a dating sense, a man does define a woman's worth. Yes, but it's not just any man is the problem, that it's the man that you want. The guy that you want, the guy who has all of the things, who's matched all of the checklists, all of the boxes. That guy is going to be like, well, if I can get you, who has 900 bodies, I'm throwing out crazy numbers here, that has 12 bodies, you have a checkered past, I don't really know if I should commit to you, I'm good. That guy is going to sleep with you. And then here's the really messed up part. Here's where the sexual revolution really messed up with women. That guy who's a 10 to whatever woman, that guy is a 10 to whoever woman. That guy will sleep with that woman and then not commit to her. But because she was able to sleep with him, she now thinks that that's the standard. She won't settle for anything less. Guys don't do that. Guys smash a baddie and we're like, bro, I was lucky. I don't know what happened. We'll still go mess with the dungeon troll. Like, we're not. Guys don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Guys just aren't wired that way. But that's what ends up happening. So yes, in a relationship, I said no earlier, but yes, in a relationship, in marriage, to build a society, you need family. And men and women have to be together in order to have the standard nuclear family. So yes, in a dating sense, in a marriage sense, A man does define a woman's worth because men control relationships and women control sex. If you have women just freeing up box for nothing, freeing up box for Taco Bell and meal deals, why would I marry you? That's $2 million. I don't exactly remember their cost of marriage over a long time, but that's way more than a Taco Bell mule deal. So why not just give you a Taco Bell mule deal and then sleep with you? Why would I commit to you long term when that's what you're capable of doing? I wouldn't.
A woman is going to be more fulfilled in regards to family.
Both of them kind of define each other's worth, because I think the ultimate goal for people to be happy is actually family.
Okay, so you're saying in all cases, a woman is going to be more fulfilled in regards to family.
Like, that's exactly what I'm saying.
And this is going to work in all cases. You're saying there's no individual case.
Okay, no, obviously not every case. There's exceptions to every rule.
Without being tied to other people in the case of family.
I think there could be an exceptional case for everything. I think there are exceptional cases, but I think that if we all start trying to be the exception as opposed to recognizing the rule, which is that people in life are more fulfilled when they achieve a family unit and when they have children, women in particular, especially aspiring to children, then you are going to end up with a bunch of people who are unhappy because your job cannot replace the feeling of having a family.
So what you're saying...
So let's go back. I want to read this real quick. So it says, standard fact check. There's conflicting research on this topic. Pew Research found that a higher percentage of adults want a career or close friends to be fulfilled compared to kids or a marriage. While the Institute of Family Studies found married men and women are happier than unmarried counterparts, largely because they have a family support system. The only thing that's left is degeneracy. You have men that are going to check out. Men are already checking out, and they're just going to go play video games because it's like I don't have anything to fight for anymore. You know, it used to be I would get up, I'd go to work, I'd have a loving wife, a loving family, loving children that actually cared about what I had to say and cared about my input, and I was the man of the house. But now men have been so devalued in American culture because Big Daddy government provides for women that it doesn't matter. You know, you have women leaving good men. You have women talking about having a starter marriage, which is just marrying some guy that they feel like is beneath them, taking him for all he's worth, and then trying to go after the guy they really want. That's the state that we're in America and in Western society, in the Western culture. And when I was in other countries, I would see this firsthand. I would be like with a girl, smashing her, doing whatever I wanted with her, and she has an entire man at home. And I'm just like, bro, like, I could never be that guy at home. I couldn't do it. And it's messed up because it's messed up on both ends, because let's say you are the top guy. Let's say you are a guy that gets with a girl, right? Even though she has somebody and you sleep with her. Now you're not going to be trusting women anymore. Your trust in women is broken. Because you're like, well, you say that you love me, but this woman was telling her boyfriend that she loved him, and it's like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it's broken on both ends. The sexual revolution hasn't helped anything. It's only led to the destruction of family, which leads to the destruction of society. You know what I'm saying? That I don't see how that's helpful at all. It's not helpful at all. There's nothing about it that's helpful at all. So, but hey guys, that's all I have for this video. If you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, the best way to help out the YouTube algorithm is to watch another one of the videos that's popping up on the screen right now. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.